tribulations, my heart, my balls, my somebody stop living, somebody come and get me. Little did I know that the Lord was riding with me. The dark, the light, my heart, the fight, the wrong, the right is gone.
Hey, what's going on out there, YouTube family? This is Samuel Legge here representing Team JVS. I'm back again for another movie review. The name of this movie is called Let Him Go. Now, this is starring legends in Kevin Costner, Diane Lane. Now, most people were kind of just like, when I saw the preview, or not, I didn't think I actually saw the actual trailer. I just saw like a poster. I was like, is this a prequel to Man of Steel? Because, you know, they previously played the role of Jonathan Kent and Martha Kent in the movie Man of Steel. And the interesting thing about this film is that their chemistry and their charisma and their scene-stealing moments are just amazing. It's kind of like all the things that kind of fit in the gap between when Clark was a kid all the way up until he was an adult, until what happened with Jonathan Kent happened. You get to see all of it in this, like every single dimension. One thing I'm gonna say is that based on the surrounding circumstances of this, you have George and Margaret. They had a son, and he had a wife, and they had a grandson. And something happens that changes that whole entire dynamic in like the split of an eye. And from that point, their stepdaughter remarries, and you know, she goes and kind of goes into a different realm and connects with a different family, and that family is called the Weboys. The Weboys, they are very different from George and Margaret on so many different levels, and to the expense of the young son, possibly dangerous. And this is what provokes Diane Lane's character to want to go and try to make sure that her grandson is okay. Thus the whole point of the title of the film. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything with this outside of just that surrounding circumstance. And this takes place initially in Montana. It goes all the way up to Dakota. I think this was filmed in Canada, but they kept, I would say like maybe this is like the 50s, maybe 70s. Yeah, I would say probably like 70s. Yeah, 70s or 60s. But they definitely keep that feel like throughout everything that's going on, whether it is, you know, them on the farm location or tending to the horses, or just the looks of the cars. The visual aesthetic and the way that this was actually shot and filmed gave you that flair that this felt like the era that it's supposed to actually be in. But even deeper than that, the longer things progress from their homestead and where Margaret and George are at, Kevin Costner and Diane Lane's characters are at, when they go into the place where the Weboys are, everything changes from your feel, the tone, everything. And there's a scene that happened, I feel like it was shot perfectly, and it was acted even more amazingly, that happens when the family, all the families, come together at the dinner table. That scene was one of the most heart-wrenching and anxiety-inducing conversations that I've seen in quite some time. And again, I haven't even really talked about the acting, but I gotta bring up somebody that I think really stole a lot of scenes that she was in. I'm talking about Lesley Manville, who plays the mother, Weboy. She was malicious. She was just evil incarnate in the way that she came off with every conversation, with everything that she did. It was very intentional. It was very manipulative. It was very maniacal. There's a scene that happens also in a hotel room that she just, oh my gosh, like there's so many different scene-stealing scenes that she does just off of verbiage, just off of dialogue, and just off of mannerisms alone. Like very uncomfortable. Every single time she showed up on screen, it was amazing. Now, again, I talked about Kevin Costner and Diane Lane, but their chemistry, like there are flashback moments I also have to talk about that they do a very good job of showing and showcasing their relationship. their relationship with their son, their relationship with the grandson, and every single flashback. Some of the flashback moments are very heartbreaking, but not one flashback wasn't beautiful. I mean, every single flashback that they showed was obviously a pivotal scene. It was obviously something that you could tell that it was an overlying emotion that one of the characters was feeling or thinking about. And the thing about Diane Lane's character in this one is that initially I was kind of really frustrated with her because I was like, why is she doing this? Why is she trying to push this? She needs to leave this alone. This is not the way to do this. And she just kept on pushing and pushing and pushing. And I was like, putting myself in the situation of the husband, Kevin Costner, I was like, you're putting him in a bad spot. Like, he's a retired sheriff. Like, he knows, certain things, and you are compromising the situation, But then they find a way through dialogue and through time and through progression and through conversations she's having with Kevin Costner and different conversations she's also having with the other family that show you why she's doing what she's doing. What's going on with her on the internal? Why she's so damaged? Why she's so guarded? Why she feels like, she doesn't want to lose anything else. And at the same time, the other dynamic happens with Kevin Costner's character. Kevin Costner in this film is subtle. It really is subtle. But if you pay attention to everything he's doing, he is a OG. There's nothing about his character that felt like, oh, well, he's overextending or he's overacting or he's overexposed. Like, he's very subtle. Like, everything that he did for the very first 2 acts was very subtle. And when something happens, even then, like, he didn't flip, And there's a hospital scene that he was in, and, like, I was like, I'm curious to see where this is going to go. And it leads to this very amazing conversation. And his mannerisms and the way that he executed, the way that came off of that scene, I was like, yo, this is about to be insane. And to the point that the third act is insane. It really is. It really does go for it. Because when I looked at initially the rating for this, it said rated R. And I was like, nothing about the first act or second act leads me to believe anything about this. Like, matter of fact, it felt like a really older love story, like of a wholesome, couple that lost and are trying to gain and trying to preserve. I felt like that was what the innocence and the essence of it, And then when this, after the second act, the whole entire thing flips, and there are some gory, dark, and dare I say, bleak moments. Like, in all honesty, like, second and third act are very hard to really watch. But and it's not even so much the things that you see, it's also the things that you are imagining in your head that's going on in the background. What's really kind of going on in different instances. Another person I want to kind of bring up in this one, because normally he's kind of in roles like, Twilight series, and I think he was also in, I think the last role I saw him in was in X-Men Days of Future Past. I think he was also in that. But I'm talking about Bobo. What is his last name? I want to make sure I get that right. I apologize if I did. Bobo Stewart. He plays the role of Peter. And Peter comes across, the couple. And at first I was kind of like, I don't know, his accent's a little off, and I was kind of, but honestly, this is his most serious role, and I think that this is a really good performance from him. Like, it's very sincere, it's very intentional, and it's, a matter of fact, like, his backstory was written very well. Like, if you actually are really trying to pay attention and attentive to what the conversation, that's another thing about the film. Dialogue is very important. Like, they do use exposition some points where it kind of like tracks the pacing a little differently, but all the dialogue and all the exposition too is very meaningful and pivotal. So there's a scene that kind of happens where he's kind of talking with them, and then something happens, he just kind of like tweets for a second, and you're like, why did he react like that? And that pays off later on in open lines of dialogue that come out later on. And I think that they definitely do that throughout. Another interesting character was Jeffrey Donovan, Bill Weboy. He had some scenes that were just creepy. And I think that he nails it. Like, it's something about the creepiness factor of his character that I was like yeah. It's really an interesting dynamic in terms of the way that they're utilizing actors, the way the director is utilizing these actors, as well as the dialogue progression, as well as the chemistry between Diane Lane and Kevin Costner. And all of it is at this focal point of this young man. And I really enjoyed this film. Like, there's one more thing. It's not a spoiler, but there's a scene that happens, and I don't really know how they actually filmed it in the timing that they did the very last shot. And all I can say is like sunrise, and the sunrise hitting something, you know? And like, I was like, how did they get that shot? And I'm going to ask the director, if I get an opportunity, I'm going to ask the director, how did you guys get that shot? Because it was the perfect shot to really just, you know, kind of end the movie. But as far as the film, I'm gonna give this an 8 or 8.5 out of 10. Like, I don't really have any issues with it. I have nothing more than just, I really love to see it again and compact it a little bit better. And like, I mean, it's hard because I'm also a very big Kevin Costner fan and Diane Lane fan. And just, they knock it out of the park with this. And I really initially brought up the whole Man of Steel and dichotomy of this. But this is very much so their own story, their own flair. And they nail it. They rock it. And hopefully you guys go and check out Let Him Go and what that actually means. I think you're going to have a very good time. But make sure you know this is rated R. It is violent. Make sure you screen it ahead of time. If you plan on letting your kids watch it, I wouldn't recommend necessarily you watch with your kids. But I think this is a very good film. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. I'll talk to you guys later on. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Peace, guys.